The eCom Q4 Summit was created to prove that any seller can experience a highly profitable fourth quarter with access to the right tips, strategies, and techniques. There's no need to struggle trying to figure out what to sell, where to find it, or how much to list it for. The summit covers everything from sourcing to listing to marketing and streamlining your operations. It doesn't matter if you're selling on one platform or multiple platforms like Amazon, eBay, Shopify, Walmart. And it doesn't matter if you're a new seller or an experienced seller. The information in the summit will help you get sale after sale after sale after sale during the busiest shopping season of the year, if you take massive action. So welcome to the eCom Q4 Summit.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. So I want to talk about sourcing from India, and I want to give you guys an update on what's happening in terms of manufacturing and exports on the ground here in India. As you guys know, I have recently moved to India. So just a quick background, I'm the co-founder of India Sourcing Network and India Sourcing Trip. I've worked in the Asia sourcing industry for over 20 years. I started my career in India, then I moved to the Philippines. I lived and worked in China for 10 years, Singapore, and then now I'm back to India. Over the last 3 or 4 years, I've really been helping Amazon and e-commerce sellers source products from India. All right, so first of all, let's just talk about some of the differences between sourcing from India and China. So I've just made this handy table. First of all, in terms of the products that are available in India, you'll find a lot of unique handmade products. That is India's specialty, whereas China really specializes in mass-produced products. Although this is changing, there are a lot of emerging industries that are focusing on automated production, and we'll talk about those industries in subsequent slides. In India, you'll find, especially if you're an Amazon e-commerce seller, the MOQs can be pretty low for handmade products specifically. So MOQs can start from as low as 100 pieces. Suppliers also have something known as an MOV, which means that they can accept a minimum order value. So they might say that, okay, you can place an order worth $5,000 and you can mix and match different SKUs. So that's very advantageous if you're a small Amazon e-commerce seller and you want to test different product categories. Whereas in China, typically MOQs are much higher. In India, we find that suppliers in general have more respect for IP. So if you do have a unique design that you have patented, or if it's your own unique design, then there's a less chance of the design being leaked or the supplier copying your design and selling it themselves under their own brand on Amazon or online. Whereas in China, we found that IP infringements are very rampant. Labor costs are generally lower in India and they are higher and have been increasing in China for quite a few years. And this is one of the reasons why a lot of the low-end production and production of labor-intensive products have been moving out of China for the last 4 or 5 years. In fact, a lot of the apparel manufacturers and apparel brands and apparel retailers have been looking for low-cost production hubs such as Sri Lanka, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. And so the low-cost production has been moving out of China for quite a few years. If you're importing into the US and there are no tariffs on India-made products, whereas if you're importing from China, then there are additional tariffs on some product categories. One of the disadvantages of sourcing from India is that there are fewer product categories to source, whereas in China, you can source anything and everything. Also, not all factories in India are online, so sometimes it becomes difficult to find factories and to vet and check factories and make sure that they're the right factories for you. Whereas in China, most of the factories are online on B2B sourcing platforms, so they're more accessible and they're easier to find. Also for India, there's not much information available online, whereas for China, there are plenty of blogs, YouTube tutorials, lots of experts who are talking about sourcing from China. So I just wanted to set the ground over here, and in case somebody is not familiar with sourcing from India, just tell you what are the key differences between India and China. So let's now talk about what's really happening in 2022 in the manufacturing and export industries. And one of the really exciting things that I'm seeing is that India's exports are at an all-time high. And these are some headlines that I have grabbed from various publications and websites over the last few months. So first of all, overall exports from India recorded were at $418 billion in the financial year 2022, which is a record high. Also, overall manufacturing witnessed a growth of 210% in financial year 2022. So there's a lot of emphasis and focus and growth in the manufacturing and export industries. Also, the manufacturing PMI, which is the Purchasers Manufacturing Index, has been growing, and it is over 50%, and it is at the highest level in over 11 years. So this is very, very positive, and it's a really good sign that overall there's a lot of investment in manufacturing and exports are growing very steadily. Also, one of India's top product categories, textiles, have experienced a record growth, again, $44.4 billion in financial year 2022, and that is the highest exports ever in the textiles industry. So overall, there's a lot of optimism in the manufacturing and exports industries. And one of the things that the government is doing is that they are really emphasizing and they're encouraging manufacturing and exports. So they have come up with a number of schemes to incentivize manufacturing in India, and they have identified about 13 sectors or industries that they really want to focus on. So apart from giving incentives to these industries, they're also focusing on and encouraging automated production. So this is not really the handmade kind of production that India is generally known for. The government really wants to emphasize and bring investment in the automated production sector. So there's a scheme that the government has come up with that is known as PLI, and that stands for Production Linked Incentives. So with this scheme, the government wants to incentivize overseas companies and domestic companies to set up factories in India. And they have earmarked about $26 billion to be invested in this scheme over the next 5 years. And they're basically going to be giving subsidies and incentives to various companies to set up manufacturing facilities in the country and to export these products. For overseas companies, there are a lot of mobile phone companies, for example, that have set up factories already in the country. And there are 13 key industries that have been identified under this PLI scheme. And the value of the subsidies and incentives that are provided are actually proportional to the production value. So the more that you invest in production, the higher your production output, the more incentives you would be getting. Also, another major development is that India has announced that they're going to set up a semiconductor manufacturing facility, and they're going to invest $3 billion in that. So currently, a lot of the electronics products are not manufactured in India because there is no semiconductor production done domestically. But once this happens, this is going to be a turning point in the electronics production industry in India. And that will really give a boost to overall production and exports of electronics. So these are the different industries that are covered in the Production Linked Incentive Scheme. And these are the incentives that they're going to be given. So the first and foremost industry, and the most important one that the government is emphasizing, is mobile phone manufacturing and also related electronic components. Then there's medical devices, critical key starting materials such as drug intermediaries and active pharmaceutical ingredients, white goods such as ACs and LEDs, telecom and networking products, electronic technology products. So you'll see that most of the product categories are very, electronics and engineering kind of products. And over here in this column, you can see all of the different incentives that are going to be given to companies that set up these factories over a period of 5 to 6 years. And then these are some of the other categories: pharmaceutical drugs, food products, solar modules, advanced chemistry cells, so batteries, textile products, automotive industry and drone industry, and specialty steel. So these are all of the 13 categories that the industries that the government has identified that they want to boost production and exports in these categories. And most of these are pretty high tech and electronic type of products. You'll only see one industry that is non-electronics, which is textile. And of course, there's food and pharmaceutical as well. So here are some of the companies that have filed under the PLI scheme for different categories. And this list is for IT hardware. So this is mostly for laptop computers and desktop computers and computer accessories. So here you'll see all of the foreign companies that have applied: Dell, ICT, Flextronics, Lava. All of these are overseas companies. And then this is the list of domestic companies that are setting up manufacturing facilities under this PLI scheme. So you can see that there are already 14 companies that have been approved by the government. And once these companies start manufacturing products, first, initially, they're going to be doing contract manufacturing. And then they're also going to be doing manufacturing under their own brand. They're going to be exporting. And they're also going to be eventually producing consumer electronics items like power banks and headsets and Bluetooth speakers, those kinds of smaller consumer electronics that China is really known for. So that will happen gradually. Initially, they're going to start with more of contract manufacturing for bigger companies, bigger brands, and then once the supply chain develops, and that's when we're going to see more production of these smaller consumer electronics also happening in the country. These are the companies that have filed under the mobile manufacturing industry. So there's Samsung, Foxconn, Wistron, Pegatron. These are all the foreign companies. And here you can see all of the domestic companies that are setting up mobile phone factories in India. So some of these companies have already set up factories and others are in the process of setting up factories. They have been given approval by the government already. So this is just happening in the last 2 years or so. And this is really going to give a big boost to electronics manufacturing in India. So the next 5 years are going to be very critical in terms of electronics manufacturing and exports from India. And there's going to be a lot of innovation and a lot of investment happening in these sectors. I also want to point out that there are a lot of advanced and high-tech factories also being set up. For example, this is a toy production factory. Now, many times when we think about, when people think about manufacturing or factories in India, they mostly think about, handmade products and maybe smaller workshops, but that is changing very, very rapidly. There are a lot of high-tech advanced factories that are being set up. This is a factory that does all types of toys like dolls, model airplanes, cars, little guns, and all sorts of plastic injection kind of toys that you would typically find in China. Those are also being manufactured in India now. This is also the same toy factory. They have a lot of automated equipment, testing facilities. So it's very, very similar to the types of factories that you would see in China. The toy industry is also one industry that the government is focusing on. And they're in fact also launching a new trade show specifically for toy exports. So that should be very interesting. And in the next few years, you'll be able to procure a lot of different types of toys from India in a wide range of materials. Another industry to take note of is the automotive industry, and not only like automobiles, like cars, etc., but also auto accessories, spare parts, as well as auto accessories, as I mentioned. So, for example, car seat covers and other types of auto accessories that can be sold easily on Amazon. So that's an industry to look out for. And in fact, India has a very advanced auto production industry. Most of the cars that are sold within the country are manufactured in India. So the production facilities are pretty automated and quite advanced. At the same time, there are also these handicraft factories that are still present in India. And a lot of Amazon e-commerce sellers do source these kinds of products that are made out of metal, wood, a lot of furnishing items, carpets, rugs, leather products. So there are small and mid-sized factories that do that produce these handmade products, but at the same time, mass production and automated production is also increasing. Here are some charts that I wanted to share, and I spoke about labor costs and production costs and how they are higher and increasing in China, whereas labor costs are still relatively lower in India. So this chart really shows this. I mean, you see Cambodia, China, Thailand, Vietnam, and India. And overall, China's labor costs have been increasing, whereas India, Vietnam are sort of at a similar level, and they are much lower than China's labor costs as of now. So if you do manufacture a product that is labor intensive, that requires manual work, you'll find that the prices will be more competitive in India. This is a very interesting case study that I thought I would share over here. And a global supply chain director at Procon Pacific had done this case study where they produced bags in China, Vietnam, and India. And if the production cost in China was 0, Vietnam was minus 11%, and India was minus 37%. So in terms of labor costs, because labor costs are lower in India, that is one of the main reasons why bag production, or this bag production, was much cheaper in India. But of course, it also depends on availability of raw materials. So if the raw materials are available locally, that will definitely be advantageous in terms of the price. However, if raw materials need to be imported from China, then that of course adds to the price. So you have to consider, where the raw materials are sourced from as well. So that was a brief update, and I just want to share a few resources that we have to help the community. So we've got a Facebook group. In case you're interested in learning more about sourcing from India, just search for Sourcing from India on Facebook. Our website, indiasourcing.net, is basically a B2B sourcing platform where we provide you everything you need to build a private label products business with made in India products. And then we also have India Sourcing Trip that is coming up very soon in October. So just a few highlights from the trip, and you can go to indiasourcingtrip.com to get more information. But dates are October 12th to the 19th of 2022. And there are 3 aspects of the trip that we really focus on. One is sourcing unique and innovative products, learning all about sourcing from India, and also we experience India's culture. There's a full-day conference that we do where we invite various sourcing, e-commerce, logistics, quality control experts, and they share best practices. We've also invited brands that have successfully built businesses with Made in India products to share their strategies and their experience. And then we also do factory tours within Delhi. And this time we're also extending India Sourcing Trip by 3 days and taking you to the city of Moradabad, which is about 4 hours from Delhi by road. And that's where most of the metal and wooden products production happens. So we're going to be visiting about 4 or 5 factories in the city of Moradabad as well. That is an add-on, additional, and optional trip after India Sourcing Trip. Then we visit a trade show. We spend about 3 days at a trade show in Delhi. It's known as the Delhi Fair. It's sort of the Canton Fair of India. There are about 4,000 exhibitors at the fair, and all of the exhibitors are export-focused companies. Their products are, export ready. The suppliers are export ready. They have export licenses. They're aware of all of the quality requirements, certifications of overseas markets, and it's a very high quality expo that's very, very export focused. And then during the trade shows, we also do a lot of networking. So in the evenings, we come back to the hotel. We've got networking sessions with drinks and dinner. Almost every night, we've got alcoholic drinks that we serve to everyone. And it's basically an opportunity for you to interact with coaches and engage with other attendees and just share insights and learnings. And then we also go to Taj Mahal, which is one of the 7 wonders of the world. It is a day trip that we do to the city of Agra. It's a very, very amazing experience, and you really have to see the Taj Mahal to experience it and see how majestic it is. So this is an all-inclusive trip. Once you buy the ticket, everything is included, including the hotel, transportation, food. We also give you a SIM card. The trips to the fairs, trips to Taj Mahal, everything is included. All you need to do is come to the Delhi airport, and then we'll have somebody to pick you up from the airport, take you to the hotel, and from there on, we will take care of you. And that's it from me today. Thank you so much for the invitation, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.